This is the bearded face mask. Have you been looking for a mask to fit a bearded man in your life? Well, if so, this is definitely your tutorial. Stick around. Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. Welcome back, and welcome if you're new here. Now I know I've had a ton of requests for this video. What makes this bearded mask video even better is this zip tie. It actually cups it so it will stay down in the wind, it won't fly up. The other thing that we're going to use in today's tutorial is the white polypropylene, the really strong sew-in stuff. We're going to sew this right down the center. If you go ahead and click down below for my free pattern on the bearded face mask, and if you're not a subscriber, well then you better get busy and hit that subscribe button. Enough talking already. Let's get busy. Your outer fabric should look bigger than your inner fabric due to the fact that the outer fabric will have the French seam in it. Fold right sides together on both pieces and find the 2 points that I'm pointing at right there with my pencil. I want you to find those and then fold your fabric yet again in half, making sure that those 2 points line up to each other. That is your middle of both of your sides. It'll make more sense soon enough. This is where our dart is going to go. I need you to mark a 1/4 inch from where you just creased that, just like you see me do there, and then I need you to make a mark 1 inch down from the edge of that fabric. Flip it over, and you can transfer just like you see me do right there, right over to the other side. And then we're going to make a 1/4 inch right there, just like we did a second ago. And now we're going to connect those 2 dots. And then we're going to flip it over and we're going to connect those 2 dots to each other. Open that right up just like you see me do right there, and now you'll see a crease mark there. What you're going to do is right from there you can go ahead and mark 1 inch down, and then you can go ahead from where that crease is and make 2/4 inch marks right on either side there. If you cannot see your crease mark, go ahead, I'll show you. Go ahead and you can just fold it back the opposite way just like you had it folded, and then you can go ahead and mark your inch down and your 1/4 inch from the crease just like that, and then connect the dots. Do the same thing on the outer fabric. You should have 4 different spots where you have a dart marked onto your fabric. I use a pencil, but some people use disappearing ink and all that, but you use what you feel comfortable with. These darts are going to help contour around the beard itself, so they are very important. So you should not leave them out. It is very hard to get a perfect good seal around a beard area, so this is the next best thing. Along with the zip tie and these darts, we should be able to get pretty darn close. Now we're going to put right sides together again, meeting up those 2 points that we initially put together. And then we're going to start at the top of that dart and sew down to the point. Now what I'm doing there is putting a pin right pointing kind of at the bottom of that dart, and that just tells me when I'm at the sewing machine that that's where I need to stop. We need to sew a dart on all 4 wings. What you're going to do is take it to your sewing machine, start at the top, sew a straight stitch diagonally headed toward that point. When you get to the bottom of the point, pull your strings out. Do not cut your thread close to your project. We need to tie those pieces of thread tails into knots because we don't want our threads to come undone. So right here you just see me tying those thread tails into knots. Now I do knot them typically 2 times. Be sure to knot all 4 areas. Now give your dart areas a really good press, all 4 of them. Now let's work on the inner sew-in filter. We're going to use the polypropylene, the really strong stuff. There's nothing getting through this, guys, let me tell you. It is waterproof and it is strong, but it is super easy to breathe through. Now you're going to cut it just like you did your inner part, the smaller piece of fabric, but you're also going to make sure that it clears the dart area. So I just gave you some measurements there with the ruler just to see how big mine actually was, but you can cut yours to any size. And I did concentrate right down the center area there because that's where people breathe the most in and out. So add the matching filter right to the wrong side of your inner fabric, and then you're going to fold it right in half. And now what we're going to do is start at the nose and sew down a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the nose all the way down to the bottom. Here's what mine looked like. I did kind of come in a little narrow on the 1/4 inch seam allowance, so it is a little bit forgiving, but try to keep your 1/4 inch. Go ahead and open it up and press the inside. Remember, don't put your iron on the polypropylene or it will melt. Go ahead and cut any bulk off of that inner seam allowance area. This is what we should have so far. Go ahead and open it up and it should sort of sit like a little bowl almost, and it should have a really nice curved area. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to iron with a piece of scrap fabric on the ham over top of that polypropylene. Just be very careful that you don't catch the poly with your hot iron. Now on to the French seam. With wrong sides together, go ahead and sew right down that outer fabric area. A very scant 1/8 of an inch is all you should be sewing right there. You should end up with something like this. Take it over and let's press the seam area just like you see me do right there, and then we are going to put it right sides together, and then we are going to press it once again right before we take it over to the sewing machine. You see how that frayed edge is right there. You're going to fold right over top of that and start at the nose, and then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down right to the end. What this seam does is make a hollow opening, almost like a tubing, that will be all prepared and ready for our zip tie. It should look something just like this, with no raw edges exposed. Take it over and give it a good hot press. Now you're going to grab your zip tie. Now there are several kinds of zip ties out there, and honestly, I've used both of them, the cheaper versions and the heavier versions, and both of them work. But I would get the zip tie that is the wider of the two, and that's the one I'm going to use today. It's almost a 1/4 inch, but not quite. So I'm laying it down where the zip tie is going to actually go, and you want to clear at least a 1/4 inch or so on the top nose area and the bottom of the mask, because you're not going to want to sew over top of that zip tie. So you want to make sure that you have enough room at the bottom. And then what you're going to do, once you cut it to fit, cut that chunky end off, you're going to feed it through that tubing that we just made on the sewing machine. And once it's in, you can actually see how it's going to be kind of humped up over top of that nose and mouth area. In this video, I'm not going to show you how to make the nose piece. Now, I've showed you in all of my other videos how to do it, so if you look right at the top of the screen here, I will actually put a link to my last video, which I explain how to make the nose piece. Now, essentially, what's in it is foam and wire and some scrap fabric. And now we know that the foam will keep your glasses from fogging up. So you'll definitely want to check that out if that is one of your problems. So go ahead and just connect it like I did in the other video, and then we'll move ahead to the next step. After your nose piece is connected to your inner fabric, you're going to go ahead with right sides together Take your outer and your inner face fabric with right sides together and go ahead and clip the top and the bottom. As you clip them, go ahead and just push that zip tie out of the way, and that will help you clear that area so that you're not sewing on top of it. Take your comfort elastic and tie a knot in each end. Now the reason why we tie a knot in each end is so that when we go ahead and sew over the comfort elastic, when we end up putting our mask on, if it gets pulled too hard, that knot will help not come out of the seam and not break. On the sides where you put the darts, I need you to fold each up like a hem, like about a 1/2 inch, just like you see me do right there, and then I'm going to put a crease in them. Each should be folded toward the wrong side of their own fabric, and you're going to do that to both sides. Now what we're going to do is open up that crease. We're going to loop that elastic so the elastic loop is inside of the mask. And we're going to place our knots on the other side of that creased area toward the edge, because that's ultimately going to be our seam and it's going to be hidden in there. I'm going to lay some heat bond down to help that stay in there so it doesn't shift before I sew it. Then I'm going to lay that other piece, that gray piece, over top, and then I'm going to give it a good press so that it stays in there. Now when you place this, it needs to be a 1/4 inch away from the top of the mask. So let's do it on this side too. So I'm putting the loop inside of the mask. Now one of my knots is actually right on the dart that I made, and the other knot is up toward the top of the mask, but it's a 1/4 inch away from the top. See, so we have to clear the seam allowance area there. Now it's ready to be sewn all around, being sure that you leave an opening at the bottom. You're going to back stitch at that opening as well, so you can turn it right side out. Once it's all sewn, go ahead and turn it right side out, being sure to poke out all of the corners. Go ahead and give it a hot press where needed, and you're also at the bottom area going to fold and iron that area in where you turned it right side out, and you're going to go ahead and take it to your sewing machine and just top stitch it closed. After that bottom area has been all sewn up, you're going to go ahead and just give it a good press all over with your sewing ham. A tailor's sewing mask ham is an absolute must in any mask making project. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.